Journalism is under attack like never before.
No, husband's being tear gas fired.
You have to have the facts.
Beautiful but tragic.
Because people are doubting everything.
You're the only way of telling their story.
How would you describe this outbreak?
Something like an apocalypse.
You're going to be really tired. You're going to be really scared.
It's too dangerous here.
Anyone who says they're not scared is lying. Anything can happen.
Did you get hit?
I sometimes wonder, how have we managed to get out of this?
People being killed.
We do genuinely believe in what we do.
He's clearly marked as press.
To show the truth.
Wow, this is absolutely unbelievable.
To uncover an injustice.
This is the result of ethnic cleansing.
I don't think any journalist wants anything more than that. I'm Alex Crawford,
I'm Stuart Ramsay.
and this is Hotspots. Coming up on Hotspots, my team travel across India as coronavirus takes hold and oxygen runs out. They were screaming out for oxygen.
The definition of a hospital struggling to cope.
People started to die in front of us.
And we're in Brazil, where the new variant is causing major concerns for pregnant women.
More pregnant women were dying than anywhere else on the planet.
I was not prepared for that.
If you've got 500,000 plus dead, these figures are absolutely horrendous.
Very early on, it was obvious that oxygen was an issue.
Everywhere you looked, there was people desperate for oxygen.
Oh, yo, yo. Look at that.
There was bartering and fighting and blackmailing to get hold of air.
And oxygen cylinders were selling for 10 times the price.
And the crematorium is working non-stop as the numbers of deaths in India continue to rise.
Constant flow of people carrying in bodies.
Coming in every few seconds.
The grief in that place was immeasurable.
I don't think we'll ever know the real figure of how many people died during this second surge. I loved India. It was my first bureau. All 4 of our children were brought up there and went to school there. We've all got fantastic memories of India, so I was very keen to go back.
I hadn't been there for a few years. I used to live there, but obviously, given the story, we knew it wasn't going to be particularly pleasant.
India went through one of the most strict lockdown across the world, for almost 3 months.
They really thought they had beaten it and went so far as to say that. They then embarked on a whole series of events. They allowed the organisation of one of the biggest religious festivals in the world.
Health experts have flagged this as a super spreader.
There was no social distancing, no personal protection.
They organised and allowed a whole series of elections to go ahead in a number of different states.
The government machinery was too involved in campaigning. Right till middle of March, the Prime Minister himself was campaigning.
The day before we got there, the Indian Prime Minister was saying, we must save this country from lockdown. From lockdown. That was his focus. We set off knowing that we were probably heading into the teeth of a coronavirus storm.
What's that look like?
Can't breathe, can't see. At least we're going into the worldwide epicentre of the global pandemic.
My memories of India is that it's a kaleidoscope of colour and people and noise and a cacophony of everything. And this was a Delhi that was a ghost town. It was like empty, empty, empty. You felt that you were landing in the middle of some weird apocalyptic situation. But even before we got there, our colleague, who's bureau chief of the Asia Bureau in Sky, Neville, was isolating because he'd been to cover this religious festival, the Kumbh Mela, which turned out to be a super spreader event.
Not being there with the team, not being able to be with them on one of the biggest stories during this period was extremely frustrating.
So we had to arrange a new producer.
There was a very high number of journalists in India who died of coronavirus, so there was a very high degree of fear. Summit was one of the few people who had agreed to work with us.
This you can see is the center of Delhi. I'm not sure if you guys have been here already. The requirement for oxygen in Delhi is around 480 tons a day. And what they're receiving is around 80.
He was very brave, extremely switched on, knew the lay of the land and essentially could speak the language.
He headed round all the hospitals in the vicinity. We immediately found that it was going to be more difficult than perhaps we first realised.
There seemed to be a sort of decision from somewhere, I didn't know where at that time, that they didn't want journalists to see the real story.
Security were keeping everyone back. They were in control of the perimeter, so they were stopping people going in, even the relatives who were sort of left to cry outside.
No, none. OK, let's go to the other one then. We went to another hospital and the front entrance was blocked. The security guards were all stopping people.
How did he give the permission?
But Summit knew a way round the back.
It was a huge hospital, warrens of lanes all around it.
I'm not really sure how we managed to get in, but somehow we did.
You're going to fill it up.
Very early on, it was obvious that oxygen was an issue. And as we got closer, we could see there were lots of patients outside. And we got closer still, and they were on stretchers, and some were on the pavement.
It was just absolute pandemonium outside.
We'd literally only been there a few minutes when people started to die in front of us, or had already died. And relatives were crying. There were too many people to even cope with the number of deaths, just right in that small little courtyard. I understand your father has passed away?
Father, no, brother.
Brother? They'd finally got the brother an oxygen mask, and minutes later he died. Tell me, who do you blame for this? Sooner or later, a relative would come, or maybe a medical person would come, and they were zipping up the body bags. There just wasn't enough time for people to even grieve or to get used to the fact that they'd spent hours trying to save their relative, and then it was over.
Everywhere you looked, there was people desperate for oxygen, desperate for the hospital to admit them.
Tell me what happened, sir.
Yesterday we came with our father, but no one came to see him. He died. And now I came with my grandfather, no one seen him.
No one's seen him either?
We have changed 3 hospitals.
This is your 3rd hospital, and you've been here how many hours?
5 hours we are here.
Do you feel angry at anyone?
We don't feel angry, we just need response.
You just need oxygen? Yeah. How much oxygen have you got left in the hospital, sir? And we were begging to get inside. So much was happening, there was no one in control. Can we do it from the door then? What's he saying?
You can go and see, but you can't take the camera inside.
Kev took this staggering shot, of which was a glimpse of the nightmare scenario that is a pandemic. Families trying to save loved ones, and doctors running from pillar to post, and despairing relatives standing by, and there wasn't a space free.
And it was just utter chaos in there. You couldn't see the floor. It was just people with beds everywhere.
And then the doors shut, and we thought, whoa, if that is happening here, what on earth is happening everywhere else? Because this was in the capital.
It's been very close because family have had it, close friends have had it. We know people who have died as well in this thing. So it's hit very close, and that's the same for almost every other family in Delhi.
Eventually, we began working with our colleague Neville, who had finished his period of isolation and began working with us again.
His head on the right. It might have been that one back there. Then.
I thought it was the other road.
It just feels that the whole government have not geared themselves up for what is to come. You've seen signs from America, from Europe, where people have just been dying. But and this is not new. It's been known, but there hasn't been any preparations by the government
We knew that there was a lack of oxygen. We got told that there were people queuing up at these small industrial businesses to try and fill up oxygen tanks. We had no idea that it was quite so extensive.
Oh, yo, yo. Look at that.
Oxygen was being brought from outside Delhi, from far off, some even, hundreds of kilometers. It was being trucked down to Delhi.
There was this huge long queue of people all lining up with their oxygen tanks who'd been there since before dawn.
Prices of oxygen and cylinders had quadrupled, we were told. So, it's not easy for them, but they had no choice,
There was bartering and fighting and bargaining and blagging and just trying any which way you could, blackmailing to get hold of air.
Because there are no hospitals, there are no beds, there are no oxygen, there is no preventive care, there is no curative care. So eventually we have to take care of our own selves.
And what about the cost of this?
So whatever the guy asks, I'll pay for it.
But if you can get the oxygen, why can't the hospitals?
Beats me. I don't know.
How's that allowed to happen? It's the populace, the big giant mega city that hasn't got its own oxygen supplies.
We did go and fixed up with this Sikh organization. They'd pick up sort of abandoned bodies that no one wanted to touch. The family members couldn't do the last rites because either they were in quarantine themselves or they were unable to do it. So this Sikh organization would do it, pick it up from hospitals or from other parts of the city, take them to the cremation ground, do the paperwork, and then do the last rites.
Is there someone who's died in their home?
Yeah. He died in home by quarantine, by COVID.
And so no one will come
Nobody
and pick them
can
up?
come there. Yeah.
They literally just volunteers. They all had jobs in completely unrelated industries.
So they've been called to a home, and this is happening, several times a day because someone has died of COVID, but no one will pick up the body. Hi there.
That was hard, going into someone's house.
Her husband.
Her husband?
Yeah.
Wow. How many children do you have?
कितने बच्चे हैं आपके परिवार? 2 daughters.
We'd seen lots of body bags and hospitals, but actually seeing a dead body, a loved one in their own home where they died, was quite something to see. And it showed, obviously, just the situation of what these people had to cope with.
It's an extremely intimate, private occasion. It's quite a privilege to be in those circumstances with people.
How will your family cope now, do you think?
Since I'm the elder one, I'll be taking the charge. I'll be doing all the things. I'll make sure we all survive. Anyhow. Anyways, I'll do it.
I'm so sorry. Delhi is a huge city, absolutely massive. There are millions of people living there. So where do you point yourself at? Where do you go? It's like you can't get into the hospitals very easily. You can't get into people's homes. Part of journalism is just about sniffing something and following your instincts.
You want goggles, Summer? Are you all right? Right. I think this is fine for me. Okay.
So we turned up at this Hindu crematorium just to investigate and see what was going on. What is the situation on the ground?
We were being told numbers on a daily basis, but in reality, just a few that you see in front of you, you know, it's clear the numbers were not being tallied up correctly.
This is pretty astonishing because almost everywhere you look, there are ambulances carrying a number of dead people. There are something like 42 ambulances that we've counted that go all the way down this road. And the crematorium is working non-stop as the numbers of deaths in India continue to rise, along with the spike in coronavirus cases. And so far, the country just hasn't been able to get a grip on it.
They just couldn't cope with the number of dead people that were arriving all the time.
I knew what we were going to see roughly, but it was just the sheer numbers, you know, the constant flow of people carrying in bodies.
There's another one coming in every few seconds.
All you could see was a haze of fires. So Kev decided to put up a drone.
It's starting to get dark, so we didn't have long to get a shot, but as soon as you stick it up there, it's just see immediately the sort of scale of what's going on.
Because the funeral pyre and the way the funerals are done in Hinduism, there's no sort of pretending that this isn't a person by putting them in a box. No, these were people.
I've never seen anything like that. When it was like churning out body after body, pyre after pyre was just lighting, and people were waiting to put another one in. With fires lighting all around you, and there's just masses of people crying, and the grief, you know, in that place was, I think, immeasurable.
At the crematorium, people who were turning up there had not even got to hospital, so they hadn't had a test, they were not registered as coronavirus deaths, and therefore they didn't die of coronavirus as far as the authorities were concerned. So we knew that the government figures did not match the reality on the ground, and this was far, far bigger than they were making out.
These are all terribly frightening statistics for the residents in this area and throughout the country. And as I say, there's a very deep worry that this could be far, far worse. If it's happening in the capital, it could be far, far worse out in the rural areas.
I was very keen to see how they were coping outside.
The virus had reached now smaller cities, towns, villages, because people just traveled. It opened up. People took the virus back with them in their villages.
So it's about 8:15 in the morning, and we woke up with a flat tire, which we got fixed, and now we're on our way to Agra in Uttar Pradesh. Yeah. It's a bumpy start.
What are you doing, Terry?
Filming you for Hotspots.
Lockdown traffic is pretty cool.
You know, India is so vast. Compared to when I lived in India before, they had huge, big motorways now, which made it so much easier, but still took like a full day's travel to get to the heart of rural India.
When we stopped in Agra at the Taj Mahal, we were kept some distance back, but it didn't appear to be any restrictions, or people were just playing. They barely saw anyone with masks on, and even those that had them were just around their chins.
Lockdowns in the big cities like Delhi sent tens of thousands of migrant workers back home to the villages. And that's how coronavirus has taken a hold here, where treatment is many, many miles away.
We reached a very remote village. There was definitely a fear hanging in the air because the villagers had blocked off the lane that passed the house where the family was suffering.
We decided to put on some protective clothing because we're going into a house where 2 people are positive, other people are showing symptoms. We want to protect ourselves, but also make sure we don't take the virus out with us.
And we knew that there was a real scandal going on about how so many teachers were dying.
Hi there. Okay, so I think this is Papa and your son.
These government teachers, and thousands of them, were put on duty, which meant that they had to go to polling booths, interact with people without any social sort of distancing or protection.
They all went out in their thousands to do this work for an election which didn't need to be held at the height of a second surge of the pandemic. Within a week or 2 weeks of coming back, thousands of teachers were getting ill. They all went back into their rural communities, taking the virus back into areas which hadn't seen the virus.
How will you manage without her, do you think? ये सब जो दिन देखना पड़ रहा है, ये सुनना देखना पड़ता है। आज उनका बर्थडे, आज मदर्स डे, और आज ही के दिन आपसे भी ये सब कर रहे हैं। जिस दिन हम लोग उनको शुभकामनाएं देते हैं, उस दिन उनको ये बताना पड़ रहा है कि वो किस वजह से दुनिया से चली गई।
That family was a microcosm of what was happening around the whole country. You know, real sadness, real desperation, real anger. You know, talking about, her mother was talking about, I told her not to go. I begged her, please don't go and do this election result. I don't think we'll ever know the real figure of how many people died in India during this second surge.
We are the largest democracy in the world. You cannot, you have to be transparent. You have to show the numbers.
I think any government might have struggled, but they seem to make a particularly bad job, certainly in the early stages.
It is a disgrace that something as big as this, in terms of numbers and what went on during those months, hasn't been really talked about.
I hope in the years to come there'll be historians from all different countries doing a full in-depth analysis of why that happened and who was responsible for it. Because that seems bonkers, absolutely bonkers.
Up next.
Seeing small babies in ICU is just a whole nother level.
You can't just dismiss what we have seen with our bare eyes. You can't say it's not true. The P1 variant in Brazil is claiming a new type of victim. Suddenly, we're seeing numbers of pregnant women getting COVID and dying rise.
I was not prepared for that.
People are angry. Why is our country like this?
If you've got 500,000 plus dead, these figures are absolutely horrendous. And it's not made up. One of the problems with reporting on coronavirus now is that a lot of people know an awful lot about it and they've made their own decisions, or they just don't want to hear about it anymore.
And there is so much misinformation out there at the moment that actually one of the most powerful and effective tools right now as a journalist is one simple thing. It's called being there. So you can't be accused of making something up.
500,000 people in Brazil are expected to have died with COVID-19 before the week is out.
In Brazil, the death toll is surging.
Brazil has been one of the worst affected countries.
There is nowhere in the world tonight where the virus is spreading faster than Brazil.
On Brazil's front line, the casualties are mounting horrifically.
Todos nós vamos morrer dia. Aqui todo mundo vai morrer.
It has a president who never took COVID as seriously as the rest of the world did.
Tem que deixar de ser país de maricas.
We'd been there in 2020, and we met up with supporters of President Bolsonaro, and literally thousands upon thousands of them simply refused to accept that it was even remotely dangerous.
We are here to support our president because he's trying to expose the truth about COVID-19.
This is more danger for you.
People cannot just rely on mainstream media.
A year later, over 500,000 people had died. It had its own variant, and it was out of control. Brazil was actually turning into a massive worldwide problem.
We'd been working in Colombia, and we always knew that we were going to go onwards to Brazil after Colombia. There are neighbouring countries.
Turns out you can't just hop anywhere nowadays.
Colombia and Brazil are neighbouring countries, but it's going to take us 10.5 hours, which seems insane because it took us 10.5 hours to get from Europe to South America. But that's COVID for you.
And somehow, even though we had all checked in together, no one had mentioned to us that Stuart was on a completely separate flight to Dominique and I.
Would you believe one airline has 2 flights from Bogota to Sao Paulo that leave within 5 minutes of each other?
So when we're coming to land in Sao Paulo, my phone starts pinging. We just landed to a stream of messages from Stuart. And it's like, you're never going to believe what happened. I almost died. Rich, it's always so unpredictable.
It's never easy, is it?
Easy. Stuart's plane had to make an emergency landing. It had to turn around an hour in the air departing from Panama because there was some kind of major problem with the aircraft.
So it wasn't the best flight I've ever had.
It was great to be back in Brazil. It's somewhere we've worked so much over the years, and Marcia, our local producer, has become a good mate of ours.
Our relationships with the local journalists that we work with have become even closer because we care, obviously. We care about each other and we care about where they are and what they're going through. So Marcia is really one of those people very close to our team who we absolutely love working with.
The old team's back.
We are back. And the situation is still the same.
Sao Paulo, where we arrived to, worst city in the worst affected region in Brazil, and nothing to indicate it's going to get any better. A story we did a good year beforehand, we first showed the numbers of graves that were being dug to cope with the likely, at that stage, COVID deaths.
So when we were back now, we decided that we needed to go back to the cemetery, and Marcia took us to the exact same spot that they filmed from the previous year.
Looks a lot different this time.
Totally.
What we saw when I put the drone up was that all of those graves had been filled and they were still digging.
Up until April, they were doing night burials.
All right.
For 2 months, this year.
So all day and all night?
Yeah, yeah.
I think those shots being merged together encapsulate the Brazil COVID story. It was quite striking.
When they dug these graves in April 2020, and there are thousands of them, they didn't expect to fill them, but they did easily, and they've had to extend in every direction here at the cemetery. The fear is that the P1 variant in Brazil is claiming a new type of victim. Somehow COVID seems to be able to find new hosts, and that appears to be the case, that it's getting younger, and that's what we were seeing in Brazil. Much, much younger people, really seriously ill or dying.
The first grave I've looked at, this is just a 30-year-old.
Suddenly, we're seeing numbers of pregnant women getting COVID and dying rise, and that was one of the main pushes for us to go to Brazil.
We thought we can try and tell this story, not in a scaremongering way, but to understand why specifically in Brazil more pregnant women were dying than anywhere else on the planet. We wanted to not just tell the stories ourselves, we wanted someone to tell their story. And that is why we started to look very specifically at what was happening to pregnant women and their families left behind.
Hi. So Marcia made contact with a guy called Douglas, who had a little baby and 2 other children. His wife had contracted COVID. She deteriorated really quickly.
She was a healthy woman, and she was a healthy mom-to-be.
I was talking with the doctors only by phone because they don't allow me to stay with her. They called me and they say, okay, the baby you born now. And you call, oh, sorry, what's happened? My baby is born. Okay, and my wife, no, your wife is not good. She was not, it's very bad at vegetative state. And they say because the bacteria went to the reds and they are trying to bring her back. And at noon, she called me, okay, Douglas, sorry, but Vanessa passed away.
So Douglas found himself in this really desperately tragic situation where he was now a new father to a little girl. But then on top of that, also still a father to 2 little boys without their mom.
She hadn't the chance to say goodbye to her kids, goodbye to her mother. When I think about that, I was not prepared for that.
It was so heartbreaking, to be honest. His whole life has been massively changed, as you can imagine, by all of this. He's absolutely dependent on his mother-in-law, who had now pretty much moved in and was helping live with the baby.
Eu não vi minha filha morrer. Eu só vi o caixão dela ser colocado lá. Então, às vezes, parece que eu estou vivendo um pesadelo, um sonho ruim, porque eu olho tudo aqui, lembra ela e pertence a ela. Então, isso para mim é bem difícil, tá sendo...
One, you don't want to intrude on these people's grief. That's the main thing. I don't want to cause them any more trauma than they've already been through. 2, you know, you're working with a baby and I'm trying to get shots to get the story to work and what have you.
That's fine. You carry on doing what you are going to do, okay?
Oh, I hope that she don't wake up.
He's just got the kid to sleep. Now, if you're a parent, you know how precious that time when the kid is asleep is. Luckily for us, he and his family were really accommodating and very friendly and, you know, incredibly brave. But there's no getting away from the fact that what we do is intrusive.
He was saying what really struck him was that he sees pregnant women walking down the street, young, with no masks on. And he just says, I can't find myself just going up to him saying, please put a mask on. You're not invincible.
I couldn't really, to be honest, hold it together when Stuart was interviewing him. It was very sad. We just look at numbers of COVID deaths and then you kind of go, this is somebody's wife. It's always hard to do interviews like that. COVID is a virus that affects the rich, the poor, the middle class, everybody.
You apologise for messing around in her kitchen. We met Tyas, who was this remarkable young lady.
She came from a very different kind of neighbourhood to Douglas, much poorer area, which just demonstrated for us, you know, this virus hits people across the board. Nobody's immune.
Can you tell us what happened to you?
Aí eu fui no posto. Aí cheguei no posto, eles viram que meu coração estava acelerado demais, falou que eu estava com medo de infarto. Aí o posto chamou a ambulância e me mandaram para o hospital preocupada. Aí eles tentaram o máximo me manter, né, acordada por causa da minha respiração, não estava conseguindo respirar. Aí chegou um ponto que eles falaram, nós vai ter que colocar você para dormir. Eu fiquei 19 dias, em geral 19 dias, mas eu fiquei 10 entubada. A inteira teve que tirar o bebê, porque disse que podia morrer eu e ele. Então eles tinham que tirar o bebê para tentar, que eu ia me recuperar mais rápido sem o bebê.
She just succumbed really fast and she was taken in, intubated, and again the baby was delivered very, very premature.
She, I think, realized just how close she was to death, and she realized that it wasn't just her little boy who she'd just had, who would have been without a mum, but it would have been her other children as well.
Mas foi muito bom voltar para casa, ver minha família, saber que Deus me deu a oportunidade de viver de novo. Vendo tanta gente morrendo, sabe? Muita gente tá morrendo, como meu tio morreu também com Covid. Muitas pessoas estão morrendo com isso, sabe? Então, para mim, eu só tenho gratidão a Deus. E ABC Zoião, bem-vindo.
Stuart and I were standing on the little step to the front door, and this woman arrived at the house.
It was a health worker's just arrived, going to check on the baby.
She's not a scientist, but what she could tell us anecdotally was that she was definitely meeting more pregnant moms before birth with COVID-19 than she had done at any time previously in the pandemic. But what we wanted was the medical story as well, you know, that we wanted hospital access to talk to a pediatrician and one of the doctors there.
The force of nature that is Marcia had gained us access to the hospital where Teus had been treated.
We first gonna film, and then we should be ready to get in close to a nice trip.
Nice work on us.
We'd actually been told we weren't going to get any interviews, we weren't going to be allowed into any wards, and no. Marcia doesn't take no, never has done.
What we often find once we meet and make a connection with people is that after they've got to know you a little bit and they trust you, they're willing to let you see more than they had originally agreed to.
This was the hospital that had treated Thais, and they knew that we'd spoken to her, and this was the doctor who had treated her baby. So for us, it was very nice to kind of have that full picture, and for the hospital, it was actually very nice for them to also talk about from their perspective.
Então, mas o que a gente observou é que essa cepa acabou atingindo mesmo gestantes que não têm nenhuma outra comorbidade, então não apresentam hipertensão, não apresentam diabetes durante a gestação. Nós observamos que houve um aumento da gravidade nessas mulheres, dos casos mesmo.
Filming in ICUs is challenging and shocking, but seeing small babies, infants in ICU is just a whole nother level.
Então, o grande problema é que quando a mãe precisa ser entubada, ela já está num estado de hipóxia. Quanto mais prolongada a hipóxia da mãe, pior é para o feto, e aí os danos acabam sendo muitas vezes irreversíveis. Por isso que a gente acaba intervindo e fazendo a cesárea, retirando os bebês.
I think that really struck home for me, and I think for the rest of the guys as well, just the extent about this COVID and just how it is affecting lives all over the world, and the ages and the types of people. It's really remarkable.
It took us a little bit by surprise, actually, that the hospital officials took us to a regular ICU treating COVID-19 patients. We hadn't requested it, and they had said, well, actually, we just want to show you that even though the pandemic's meant to be, you know, dropping off, our ICU here is still full.
We've seen it, everyone's seen these pictures, and it's very easy to start taking them for granted. You shouldn't, because those people are really seriously ill.
It's only by us going in there and witnessing that we can get across to people the enormity of what they're facing.
We knew that the death toll in Brazil was going to pass the 500,000 mark, and it did. And it did, coincidentally, on the day that there was a mass anti-Bolsonaro rally planned.
Vacina no braço, comida no prato, fora Bolsonaro!
Everything in Brazil is huge. The country's huge. When they do demos, they're huge and they're loud. While they sometimes turn very nasty, often, you know, there's a real sort of party and carnival atmosphere.
Can you hear, do you think?
We're there doing a news story, and in the middle of it all, the desk was trying to get us up to do live.
We're going to do it live in this one.
And I'm trying to communicate with Stuart, who's a couple of feet away from me, and we couldn't hear each other.
I don't know if I'll get reception. Could be a mission.
I mean, there was just no chance. It was so loud.
I mean, there's a lot of people here. It's difficult to guess, actually, because it goes in both directions. We're sort of halfway down. But, I mean, it's tens and tens of thousands. It might be hundreds of thousands. It's difficult to know.
And it's fair to say there was a across-the-board anger that lockdown restrictions hadn't been put in place. We spoke to loads of people, and absolutely every single one we spoke to had either lost a friend or an immediate family member to COVID.
Bolsonaro mentality. It's why we want to show the world our indignation.
See people dying because of this corrupt man.
At least 4 people that I know have died by coronavirus. We don't want this. We don't want to live under the Bolsonaro government.
Do you think Bolsonaro is going to listen?
No.
People are angry. Like, when is anybody going to listen to us? Why is our country like this? Why is the president still in power when he's mishandled the pandemic so badly?
For his part, President Bolsonaro says the economy has to stay open. He says people might get COVID, but they'll definitely starve to death.
If you're going to do a story about COVID, you're going to do a story about mismanagement of the country by the president, well, at the very least, you should try to speak to the president.
Shall we try to get out?
We'd tried all sorts of sources. We'd got through to one of his sons, who's a very close confidant of the president. He just told us to basically get lost and don't ring this number again.
Brasilia, capital of Brazil.
It turned out we could get an interview with a very high-ranking congressman who's a former general and who's, you know, good buddies with the president.
So we went to meet this general. Now, we didn't know what to really expect because he is pretty hardcore.
I mean, as journalists, we are the enemy.
General?
The general was a little bit tense, or sort of looked a bit unsure about us.
You visited which places you visited in Brazil?
He's very clearly proud of his military heritage.
So we pointed out that Richie was a former Marine. And like a transformation in the interview, he suddenly became really, really matey.
I respect so much people from your country.
Almost instantaneously, his whole demeanour towards us changed.
He actually gave us a really good, wide-ranging interview, and we were allowed to talk to him about pretty much anything, but he was absolutely adamant that Bolsonaro was right, that there should be no lockdown, and that COVID, even though he'd had it, wasn't that big a deal.
O lockdown, ele não foi sucesso em parte nenhuma do mundo.
Well, he actually said that he would try to facilitate a meeting with President Bolsonaro, who doesn't like speaking to foreign media, doesn't like speaking to much media. So we were hoping that we would be able to go and get nearer to the president. And you'll be with him then?
I will be with President in both.
Okay. Unfortunately, what he didn't know is that the president's office would realise what we were up to, and they withdrew all our accreditation about the next morning.
I have people say to me, oh, but you know, the stuff you filmed in Brazil, surely that's not true. And it's like, I don't know how to explain anymore to people that what we are seeing, we are privileged to see, because we are witnessing reality in real time. It's very, very difficult when you have a section of society that is convinced that absolutely everything they see is fake unless it suits their narrative.
It is false narrative.
Coronavirus has killed not one person. That's a fact.
They no longer talk about COVID.
If you've got 500,000 plus dead, these figures are absolutely horrendous. And it's not made up. But you can't just dismiss what we have seen with our bare eyes. You can't say it's not true.
This whole idea of fake news and this whole idea that hospital wards are empty and that the media is lying and that, you know, that mentality exists amongst Bolsonaro supporters for sure in Brazil, and Brazil is hardly the only country where that is an issue.
Going to meet people like Douglas and Teus, getting them to tell their stories in their own words, not us telling the story, I think is the best way we can get an accurate representation of what is happening in the world across the people. And you're just going to have to accept that, you know, some people you're just never going to convince.
You have no choice but to keep doing it. You just got to keep going. You don't want to lecture people, but you do have to give them the facts. You can't allow people who say things aren't true when they are actually true.
Next time on Hotspots, as the fate of the planet lies in the hands of world leaders at the COP climate conference, I'm in Madagascar, a country on the brink of the world's first climate famine. Everyone that we're seeing here is showing signs of undernourishment or starvation.
And I'm in Peru to see the biggest glacier in the tropics melting.
You know, 15 foot of ice that is now just grass.
It's melting before your eyes. I was filming a clip and just crying.
Until then, you can find us on Twitter at Alex Crawford Sky and at Ramsay Sky. See you next time.
Robert's got a quick hand. You look around the room, he won't tell you his plan. He's got a rolled cigarette hanging out his mouth. He's a cowboy kid, yeah, found a 6-shooter gun.